Last time, Krishna showed us why many people fail to recognize the divine, even when surrounded by it. Today, he takes the conversation in a completely different direction. But today, the conversation takes a remarkable turn. He begins describing the different kinds of people who seek the divine: the distressed, the curious, the ambitious, and the wise. But what begins as 4 different seekers eventually becomes one extraordinary realization. A realization so rare that Krishna calls such a person a Mahatma. So, in this episode, let's explore how suffering becomes a doorway, how curiosity becomes wisdom, how ambition becomes surrender, and how the search for God ultimately ends in the realization Vasudeva Sarvam. Everything is divine. So far in Chapter 7, Krishna has revealed something extraordinary. He showed Arjuna that everything in existence arises from his lower and higher energies. He showed that the entire universe is strung upon him like pearls on a thread. He showed that the taste in water, the light of the sun and moon, the strength in the strong, and the seed of all life are expressions of the divine. And then Krishna said something even more surprising. Despite being surrounded by the divine, many people still fail to see it. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If the divine is everywhere, why do some people never recognize it? Why do some people spend their entire lives searching, yet never find what they are truly looking for? Krishna answers that question in verse 15.
Yes, Jessica. And this verse can feel harsh when we first hear it.
Those whose knowledge is stolen by Maya, those who possess a demonic tendency, those who are the lowest among humans, and those who are deluded, do not turn toward me.
At first glance, it sounds like Krishna is criticizing people. But Osho points out something very important. Krishna is not condemning anyone. He is diagnosing a condition. Just as a doctor says, you have a fever. The doctor is not insulting you. He is describing reality. Similarly, Krishna is describing why some people never turn toward their highest possibility. And the most important word in this verse is a very interesting word, mood. Most translations simply call it fool. But Osho says that is too shallow. A mood is not merely a person with low intelligence. A mood is a person who uses his intelligence against himself. Imagine a man sitting on a tree branch and he starts cutting that very branch. The more he cuts, the more successful he feels. The branch is getting shorter. The work is progressing. Results are visible. Achievement is happening. But what he cannot see is that his success is bringing him closer to a fall. Eventually, the branch breaks and he falls with it. Krishna says that is what a mood does. He works hard. He strives. He achieves. But unknowingly, he is damaging the very foundation on which his life rests.
That sounds surprisingly modern.
Exactly. Think about it. A person builds wealth but destroys health. Builds a career but loses family. Builds influence but loses inner peace. Builds an image but loses authenticity. Externally successful, internally collapsing. Krishna says that is not wisdom, that is murtha. Because the branch being cut is your own life. And then Krishna uses another phrase, naradma, often translated as the lowest among humans. But Krishna is not talking about social status. He is talking about wasted potential. A human being possesses a unique opportunity, the ability to question, the ability to reflect, the ability to become conscious, the ability to know who they truly are. Yet many people spend their entire lives without exploring any of these possibilities. It is like being handed a treasure chest and spending your whole life playing with the wrapping paper.
So Krishna isn't saying they're bad people.
No, he is saying they are living below what is possible for them. Then comes another fascinating category, Maya Pahrita Jnana, those whose knowledge has been stolen by Maya. Notice Krishna does not say they have no knowledge. He says their knowledge has been stolen, meaning knowledge exists, information exists, education exists, experience exists. Yet somehow wisdom never flowers. Have you ever met people who keep repeating the same mistake again and again and again? The relationship changes, the city changes, the job changes, the circumstances change. But the pattern remains exactly the same. Life keeps teaching. But nothing is learned. Osho says this is Maya, a kind of hypnosis, a kind of unconsciousness. You see, yet you do not see, you know. Yet you do not transform. This may be the greatest challenge of our age. Never before have humans possessed so much information. And yet anxiety grows, confusion grows, distraction grows, knowledge is increasing, wisdom is not.
That feels painfully relevant.
It does. Because intelligence alone is not enough. A person may know exactly what is right, yet never live it. And then Krishna mentions the fourth category, Asuram Bhavamashrita, those who have taken refuge in a demonic nature. Now this is often misunderstood. When we hear the word demonic, we imagine monsters. Krishna is pointing to something much subtler. An Asuri tendency is any tendency that moves against harmony, against growth, against truth, against one's own highest nature. Osho tells a beautiful story. A flowering vine once heard someone say, "You deserve no credit for your flowers. You are forced to bloom. You have no choice." The vine became offended. It became rebellious and declared, "I refuse to grow. I refuse to bloom. I refuse to become what I am meant to become." But a strange thing happened. Life inside still wanted to grow. The sap still wanted to rise. The flowers still wanted to bloom. The energy still wanted expression. Yet the vine resisted. And because of that resistance, it became twisted, knotted, restless, unhappy. When we resist our deepest nature, we suffer. When we fight against growth, we suffer. When we fight against truth, we suffer. Krishna's message is profound. God is not punishing us. We are creating friction by moving against our own highest possibility.
So all four categories are actually connected?
Very much so. Look carefully, Jessica. The labels are different, but Krishna is pointing to one underlying problem. A person can be brilliant, educated, powerful, and successful, yet still move away from their highest possibility. That is the real tragedy Krishna is describing. Different forms, same direction. Moving away from the deepest reality of life. And perhaps this is the most important leadership lesson hidden in verse 15. Krishna is not dividing humanity into successful and unsuccessful, rich and poor, educated and uneducated, powerful and powerless. The real division is much simpler. Those who are moving toward greater awareness and those who are moving away from it. A leader can run $1 billion company and still be cutting the branch he sits on. I once met a senior executive who had achieved everything he had dreamed of: corner office, global role, financial freedom. But during a conversation, he quietly admitted, "I don't remember the last time I felt genuinely happy." He had won the race, but forgotten to ask where the race was leading. That is exactly Krishna's warning. A leader can have titles, awards, and influence, and still be moving away from himself. So, verse 15 asks a question every one of us must answer. Is my effort helping me grow, or am I becoming more successful at something that is quietly destroying me? Because the greatest danger in life is not fail. The greatest danger is succeeding in the wrong direction.
In verse 15, Krishna gave us a difficult mirror. He spoke about people who turn away from their highest possibility. People who keep cutting the very branch on which they sit. People whose knowledge is stolen by Maya. People who spend their lives moving away from truth. And honestly, many of us could probably see a little bit of ourselves in that verse. But Krishna does something beautiful next. He doesn't leave us with judgment. He doesn't divide humanity into the saved and the condemned. He doesn't say some people deserve God and others do not. Instead, he opens the door wider.
Yes, and that is what makes verse 16 so compassionate. After describing those who turn away from the divine, Krishna now speaks about those who turn toward it. Not perfect people, not enlightened people, not saints, simply people who have begun turning. Krishna says,
O Arjuna, 4 kinds of virtuous people worship me: the distressed, the seeker of knowledge, the seeker of worldly gain, and the wise.
At first glance, this verse looks simple, just 4 categories. But hidden inside is a revolutionary idea. Krishna is saying, you do not need perfect motives to begin your journey. You simply need to begin.
That feels very different from how spirituality is often presented.
Exactly. Many people imagine that to approach God, you must already be pure, already detached, already wise, already enlightened. Krishna says no. Come as you are. Come confused, come hurting, come curious, come ambitious. Just come. That is enough. And notice something else. Krishna uses the word Sukritin. People whose actions are moving in a positive direction. People whose energy is moving toward growth, toward awareness, toward truth. In verse 15, we met the mood, the person cutting his own branch. Now, Krishna introduces the opposite, not necessarily a saint, but someone whose life has begun turning towards something higher. Direction matters more than perfection.
So let's explore these 4 types.
Let's start with the first one. Arth, the distress seeker. This is the person who turns toward God because life becomes too painful. Not because they studied philosophy. Not because they discovered enlightenment. Because suffering breaks them open. A business collapses. A relationship ends. Health deteriorates. A loved one is lost. The future suddenly becomes uncertain. And for the first time, they look beyond themselves.
Many spiritual journeys probably begin there.
Most do. And one of the most beautiful examples is Draupadi. When she was humiliated in the Kaurava assembly, she first looked to her husbands. They remained silent. Then she looked to the elders. They remained silent. Then she relied on her own strength. But eventually, every support failed. And in that moment, something profound happened. She stopped depending on everyone else. She stopped depending even on herself and completely surrendered to Krishna. Only then did grace flow. There is an important leadership lesson here. Many leaders discover spirituality only after discovering the limits of control. As long as everything works, we believe we are in charge. Then life brings a situation we cannot solve. And suddenly a deeper search begins. Sometimes the breakdown becomes the doorway. The next one is Jijyasu, the curious seeker. This seeker is different. Pain is no longer the driver. Wonder is. Questions begin appearing. Who am I? What is consciousness? Why does success not create lasting fulfillment? What survives death? What is truth? This person is not running from suffering. They are running toward understanding. And if we are honest, many listeners of this podcast probably belong here. They may have successful careers, healthy lives, loving families, yet a question keeps appearing. Is there something more? Is there a deeper reality beneath all this? That question itself is sacred, because curiosity becomes the beginning of wisdom.
And then comes a category that surprises many people.
Yes, because Krishna's third category is not a philosopher, not a saint, not even a seeker of truth. Artharthi, the seeker of gain. This person approaches God wanting something: success, money, health, protection, opportunity, recognition, a solution, a miracle. Many people would expect Krishna to criticize such devotion, but he doesn't. He includes it. Why? Because even though the motivation is still selfish, the direction has changed. The eyes have started looking upward. Think about Dhruva. He began his journey with ambition. He wanted power, recognition, status. He wanted a kingdom greater than his father's. But something extraordinary happened. As his devotion deepened, his desires transformed. When he finally experienced the divine, he realized he had been asking for broken pieces of glass while standing before a priceless jewel. And isn't that true for many of us? We begin by asking life for promotions, success, recognition, achievement. Then one day we discover something deeper. We discover that what we were really searching for wasn't success. It was fulfillment, not achievement, but meaning. The next one is Jnani, the wise one. And finally, Krishna mentions the Jnani. For now, Krishna only introduces this devotee. He will explain this category much more deeply in the next verse. But the Jnani has already understood something fundamental. They understand their relationship with the divine. Their devotion is no longer driven by fear or curiosity or gain. It comes from understanding. It comes from love. It comes from recognition. We will explore this extraordinary devotee in the next verse. But for now, Krishna simply places the Jnani before us as the highest possibility of human growth.
What strikes me most about this verse is how welcoming it feels.
I agree. Because Krishna is not asking, why are you coming? He is celebrating the fact that you are coming. Come in pain. come with questions, come with desires, come with confusion, come with hope. Just turn towards something higher. And perhaps that is the deepest message of verse 16. The divine does not demand perfection before the journey begins. The divine simply asks for a change in direction. Because the moment a person stops cutting the branch and starts looking toward the sky, the transformation has already begun.
Ankur, what fascinates me is that these 4 categories don't just describe spiritual seekers. They almost describe 4 kinds of leaders as well.
Absolutely. And this is why the Bhagavad Gita remains so relevant today. Because if we look carefully, most leaders begin their inner journey through one of these 4 doors. The distressed leader, Arth. Think about the executive who suddenly faces burnout, the founder whose company is running out of cash, the leader whose team is falling apart, the parent trying to balance career and family, the professional who appears successful externally but feels exhausted internally. For years, they trusted strategy, hard work, control, experience. And then one day those tools stop working. The crisis becomes too large, the uncertainty becomes too great, and for the first time they ask, what am I missing? What is all this really for? Many leadership transformations begin exactly there, not through success, through suffering. The curious leader, Jijyasu. Some leaders are not broken. They're simply awake enough to ask deeper questions. They've achieved goals, built careers, created wealth. Yet something inside remains curious. Questions begin appearing. What kind of leader do I want to become? What legacy will I leave? What is success beyond money? How do I lead without losing myself? These leaders are not searching because life is painful. They are searching because growth has become more important than achievement. The ambitious leader, Artharthi. This category may be the largest in modern organizations. People seek growth, promotion, influence, recognition, better compensation, larger responsibility, bigger impact. And Krishna does something remarkable. He doesn't reject ambition. He includes it. Because ambition can become a doorway. The danger is not ambition. The danger is never evolving beyond ambition. Many leaders begin by chasing success. But the best leaders eventually begin chasing significance. They move from what can I get to what can I contribute. That is Dhruva's transformation in modern language. The wise leader, Jnani. And then there are rare leaders. Leaders who understand something profound. Their identity is not tied to titles, not tied to position, not tied to applause, not tied to quarterly results. They still perform, they still lead, they still execute. But their inner stability comes from somewhere deeper. They know who they are beyond the role. And because of that, they create trust, calm, clarity, and long-term impact.
So Krishna isn't classifying devotees. He's almost describing stages of leadership maturity.
Yes, and perhaps that's the deepest lesson of verse 16. Every leader begins somewhere. Some begin in crisis, some begin in curiosity, some begin in ambition. A few eventually arrive at wisdom. The important question is not, where am I today? The important question is, am I moving toward greater awareness or am I standing still? Because Krishna is not measuring your starting point. He is looking at your direction.
In verse 16, Krishna introduced us to 4 kinds of devotees: the distressed, the curious, the seeker of worldly gain, and the wise. And what I loved about that verse was Krishna's compassion. He didn't demand perfection. He didn't say, "Come only when you are enlightened." He simply said, "Turn. Turn toward something higher. Turn toward truth. Turn toward the divine." But that leaves an important question. If all 4 devotees are accepted, then why does Krishna now single out the jnani? What makes the wise devotee different?
That is exactly what verse 17 answers.
Among these devotees, the Jnani is the highest. He is constantly united with me. He is devoted exclusively to me. I am exceedingly dear to him, and he is exceedingly dear to me.
Now at first glance, this sounds like Krishna is playing favorites, almost as if God loves one category more than the others. But that is not what Krishna is saying, and Osho gives a beautiful explanation. The distressed devotee comes because life hurts. The curious devotee comes because questions arise. The seeker of gain comes because he wants something. There is nothing wrong with any of these beginnings. In fact, Krishna welcomed all of them in the previous verse. But over time, something begins to change. Devotion purifies. Awareness deepens. Understanding matures. And slowly the seeker's relationship with God transforms. At first, he comes asking. Then he comes seeking. Finally, he comes simply because he loves. That is the birth of the Jnani.
So the jnani isn't a separate category.
Exactly. In many ways, the Jnani is what the other 3 eventually become. When devotion matures, when understanding deepens, when the heart becomes pure, the seeker stops chasing gifts and falls in love with the giver. Krishna uses a beautiful phrase, Nitya Yukta, constantly connected. Not connected for 10 minutes during meditation. Not connected only during prayer. Not connected only during crisis. Constantly connected. Think about someone deeply in love. They may be sitting in an office, driving a car, walking through an airport, attending a meeting, yet somewhere in their heart, the beloved remains present. The Jnani lives like that, except the beloved is the divine. There is no separation, no forgetting, no switching on and off. The connection becomes continuous.
And Krishna also says, Ek Bhakti. What does that mean?
One-pointed devotion, exclusive devotion. Not because the Jnani rejects the world, but because he sees the divine everywhere. His loyalty is no longer divided. His happiness is no longer divided. His identity is no longer divided. He no longer says, my career will make me complete. My wealth will make me complete. My success will make me complete. My reputation will make me complete. He has understood something profound. Nothing outside can complete what is already complete within. The end of transactional spirituality. This is where the biggest transformation happens. The distressed seeker wants relief. The curious seeker wants answers. The seeker of gain wants results. But the Jnani wants nothing, and that is precisely why he receives everything. Not because he has acquired more, but because he has stopped demanding more.
That sounds almost paradoxical.
It is. Most people approach spirituality the same way they approach shopping. They want peace, success, happiness, security, enlightenment, liberation. everything becomes another item on the wish list. Even God becomes a means to an end. The Jnani is different. He no longer approaches God for something. He approaches God because he has understood something. The world cannot give what the soul is truly seeking.
Ankur, this feels incredibly relevant for leadership.
It is. Because most leaders begin in one of the first three categories. Some begin through crisis, a business setback, a health scare, burnout, failure. Those are the earth leaders. Some begin through curiosity. They start asking, what is meaningful success? What kind of legacy do I want to leave? Who am I beyond my title? Those are the Jigyasu leaders. Others begin through ambition. They want growth, promotion, recognition, influence, impact. Those are the Artharthi leaders. And Krishna says all of these beginnings are valid. But eventually leadership matures. The mature leader stops asking, what can leadership give me? And starts asking, how can I serve something larger than myself? The role is no longer used to complete an insecure identity. The role becomes an expression of an already grounded identity. That is the beginning of Jnani leadership.
And then Krishna makes a very intimate statement. He says, I am dear to him, and he is dear to me.
Osho explains this beautifully. Imagine rain falling from the sky. The rain falls equally on every pot, but an upside down pot remains empty. A pot turned upward becomes full. The rain is not partial. The receptivity is different. Similarly, divine love is available to everyone. The Jnani is not loved more. The Jnani is simply more available to that love. He has stopped resisting it, stopped hiding from it, stopped bargaining with it, stopped demanding conditions from it. He has turned his vessel upward and therefore receives what was always being offered. The highest form of surrender. Perhaps the most beautiful way to understand the Jnani is this. The distressed devotee says, protect me. The curious devotee says, teach me. The seeker of gain says, give me. The Jnani says, take me. Take my ego. Take my fears. Take my ambitions. Take my separate identity. In complete surrender, he offers himself into the fire of divine love, like an oblation offered into a sacred flame. Nothing held back, nothing negotiated, nothing reserved. And that is why Krishna says this devotee is dear to me, because the distance has disappeared. The seeking has matured into knowing. The transaction has matured into love. The journey has matured into union. And perhaps that is the ultimate message of verse 17. The goal of spirituality is not merely to find answers, not merely to remove suffering, not merely to achieve success. The goal is to become so deeply aligned with truth that nothing remains between you and the divine. Not fear, not desire, not ambition, not even the seeker himself. Only love remains.
In verse 17, Krishna revealed something extraordinary. He said that among all devotees, the Jnani is the most dear. The distressed devotee seeks relief. The curious devotee seeks answers. The seeker of gain seeks results. But the Jnani seeks nothing except the divine itself. And that naturally leaves us with another question. If the Jnani is so special, what exactly happens to such a person? Why does Krishna speak about him with such intimacy?
And Krishna's answer in verse 18 is perhaps one of the most astonishing statements in the entire Bhagavad Gita. He says,
All these devotees are noble, but the Jnani is my very self, for he is steadfast in me and has taken refuge in me as the supreme goal.
Now stop for a moment. Krishna does not say, the Jnani is my best devotee. He does not say, the Jnani is closest to me. He does not even say, the Jnani is my beloved servant. He says something far more radical. The Jnani is my very self.
That is interesting. Before elevating the Jnani, Krishna first says that all devotees are noble.
Exactly. And that is very important. Because Krishna is not rejecting the other three. He is not criticizing them. He is not creating a hierarchy of worthiness. The distressed devotee is noble. The curious devotee is noble. The seeker of gain is noble. The wise devotee is not noble. All are welcome. All are accepted. All are moving in the right direction. Remember verse 15. Those people were moving away from truth. These people are moving toward truth, and that alone makes them noble.
So, if all four are noble, what makes the Jnani unique?
The answer lies in two words Krishna uses, Yukta Atma. This is where Osho's explanation becomes incredibly relevant. He says, most of us are not one person. We are many people. One version of us appears at work. Another appears at home. One version appears in front of our boss. Another appears in front of our team. One version appears on social media. Another appears when nobody is watching. One moment we are loving, the next moment angry. One moment confident, the next moment insecure. One moment courageous, the next moment afraid. Our inner world is fragmented, divided, pulled in different directions.
That sounds uncomfortably accurate.
Because it is. Most people spend their entire lives managing different versions of themselves, different masks, different identities, different performances. But Krishna says the Jnani is different. The Jnani becomes Yukt Atma, integrated, whole, undivided. Wherever you meet him, he is the same person. No masks, no performance, no hidden compartments, no split personality, no internal civil war. Think about it. The Bhagavad Gita begins on a battlefield. But the real battlefield was never Kurukshetra. The real battlefield was inside Arjuna. Conflicting desires, conflicting identities, conflicting beliefs, conflicting emotions. And isn't that true for all of us? Part of us wants comfort. Part of us toils growth. Part of us wants security. Part of us wants freedom. Part of us wants recognition. Part of us wants peace. We are pulled in different directions simultaneously. That is fragmentation. That is inner conflict. That is suffering. The Jnani is one in whom this inner conflict has dissolved. The battlefield has become silent.
So integration begins when masks disappear?
Yes, and this may be one of the most practical lessons of the verse. Osho says something beautiful. The moment a person honestly accepts who they are, the journey toward wholeness begins. Most of our energy goes into pretending. Pretending to be stronger, smarter, more successful, more spiritual, more confident. And every mask creates distance. Distance from others, distance from reality, distance from ourselves. The Jnani drops the masks. Not because he becomes perfect, but because he becomes authentic. And authenticity creates integration.
Krishna says the Jnani becomes his very self. How is that even possible?
Because Krishna is using a very different meaning of the word knowledge. Normally we think knowing means gathering information, reading books, learning concepts, accumulating facts. But Krishna is talking about a knowing in which the knower disappears, a knowing in which separation disappears. Imagine someone deeply in love. For brief moments, they forget themselves completely. Only love remains. Or imagine an artist so absorbed in painting that painter and painting become one experience. Or a musician so immersed in music that the musician disappears and only music remains. That is the direction Krishna is pointing toward. Real knowing is not observing from a distance. Real knowing is becoming one. Think of the greatest leaders you've worked with. What made them memorable? Not their strategy, not their title, their authenticity.
This feels deeply relevant for leaders today.
More than ever, because modern leadership often rewards fragmentation. One face for customers, one face for employees, one face for investors, one face for family, one face for LinkedIn, one face for ourselves. And maintaining all those identities is exhausting. Many leaders are not tired because of work. They are tired because of fragmentation. The most trusted leaders are usually the most integrated leaders. What you see in public is what exists in private. Their values don't change with circumstances. Their ethics don't change with pressure. Their character doesn't change with convenience. They are the same person everywhere. That is leadership integration. That is Yukta Atma. And that brings us to the deepest message of verse 18. Verse 16 showed us 4 doors into spirituality. Verse 17 showed us the highest devotee. Verse 18 reveals the destination. The destination is not merely devotion. The destination is not merely knowledge. The destination is not merely belief. The destination is wholeness, integration, oneness. The moment the fragmented self becomes whole, the distance disappears, the seeker disappears, the search disappears, only truth remains. And that is why Krishna says, the Jnani is my very self. Not because God favors him, but because there is no longer any separation between them.
In verse 17, Krishna said the Jnani is his dearest devotee. And in verse 18, he went even further. He said, the Jnani is my very self. Not close to me, not loved by me, not blessed by me, but my very self. And honestly, Ankur, that feels like the end of the journey. What more can be said after that?
That's exactly what makes verse 19 so beautiful. Because Krishna now answers a question we may not even realize we are carrying. How does a person arrive there? How does someone move from seeking to knowing, from devotion to oneness, from separation to unity? And Krishna says,
After many births, The person endowed with true knowledge surrenders unto me, realizing Vasudevaha Sarvam. Vasudeva is everything, and such a great soul is very rare.
Krishna begins by saying, after many births. Is Krishna simply talking about reincarnation here?
Perhaps. But there is another beautiful way to understand it. Think about how many identities we live through in a single lifetime. As a child, as a student, as a professional, as a parent, as a leader, as a friend, as a success, as a failure. And in every stage, we create a new version of ourselves, a new story, a new image, a new identity. We spend years trying to become somebody, only to discover that we still don't know who we are. That is why Krishna says, after many births. Because wisdom does not arrive quickly, maturity does not arrive quickly, truth does not arrive quickly. The human journey is long, very long.
And after all those journeys, what does the wise person discover?
Not a theory, not a philosophy, not a belief, a realization, a direct seeing, and that realization is Vasudeva Sarvam, everything is Vasudeva. Now this is where many people misunderstand the verse. Krishna is not saying everything belongs to God. He is saying something much deeper. The divine is not merely present in existence. The divine is existence. The waves are different. But the ocean is one. The forms are many. But the essence is one. The names are many. But the reality behind them is one. Seeing unity behind diversity. Ordinarily, we see differences. This person is successful. That person is struggling. This is a friend. That is an enemy. This is sacred. That is ordinary. This is spiritual. That is worldly. The mind constantly divides, labels, separates, categorizes. But the Mahatma begins seeing something else. Not the differences, the underlying unity. He sees one life expressing itself through countless forms, one consciousness expressing itself through countless beings, one existence wearing countless faces. That is what Krishna means by Vasudeva Sarvam.
And then Krishna says, such a Mahatma is very rare. Why rare?
Because most people stop the journey too early. Some stop at comfort, some stop at success, some stop at knowledge, some stop at achievement, some stop at recognition. Very few continue all the way to truth. Very few keep asking deeper questions. Very few are willing to let go of the identities they have spent years building. Most people want life to validate them. The Mahatma wants to understand life. Most people want answers. The Mahatma wants reality.
This feels incredibly relevant for leadership.
It is, because leadership often begins with ambition. We want influence, impact, growth, recognition, authority, results, and there is nothing wrong with that. Krishna never condemns the beginning, but eventually a deeper question appears. Not, how do I become more successful? But, who am I becoming through this success? The immature leader sees only individual goals. The mature leader begins seeing interconnectedness. How culture affects performance. How trust affects culture. How character affects trust. How inner clarity affects every decision. Everything is connected. Nothing stands alone. Imagine spending your entire life searching searching through success, searching through relationships, searching through achievement, searching through knowledge, and then discovering what you were looking for was quietly present in every moment. That is Vasudeva Sarvam. The greatest leaders eventually stop seeing isolated events. They begin seeing the whole system, the whole organization, the whole human being, the whole picture. In a way, leadership maturity is also a journey from fragmentation to wholeness. There is another subtle beauty here. Krishna does not say, after many births, the wise person becomes intelligent. He says, after many births, the wise person surrenders. That is remarkable, because the final step is not accumulation. It is surrender. Not collecting more knowledge, not gathering more information, not becoming more impressive. Letting go, relaxing, trusting, yielding. The ego spends lifetimes trying to control everything. The wise person finally discovers that peace begins when control ends.
What stays with me after today's conversation is how compassionate Krishna is. He doesn't ask where we begin. He simply asks whether we are moving toward truth. Perhaps that is also the challenge for modern leaders. To move beyond seeing isolated problems, to move beyond titles and identities, to move beyond the endless pursuit of achievement, and begin seeing the deeper unity beneath it all. Because true leadership is not just about managing people. It is about understanding connection. Connection with purpose, connection with others, and ultimately, connection with ourselves. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who might benefit from it. Subscribe to Beyond the Battlefield on your favorite podcast platform. And we'd love to hear your reflections, questions, and insights. Write to us at beyondthebattlefield@outlook.in. And don't forget to explore our Beyond the Battlefield GPT companion using the link in the description. Until next time, may you lead with clarity, act with awareness, and discover that the battlefield you are trying to master may already contain the wisdom you seek.